and welcome to Tuesday Roundtable on From the Couch Sports Talk Radio. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and notify for all the latest content, and push it out there to your friends for us. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Doing good, Sean.
I'm doing good. There? David looks like he just got out of the refugee camp right now. I don't know what shirt he's wearing.
What do you mean?
He's losing some weight right there. It's like that. Just so you know, for all that are watching, just so you know, about 6 months ago, that shirt was around his neck, like very tightly.
I know.
And now he's lost so much weight that it looks like he might have been a prisoner of war somewhere.
I lost like 35 pounds, dude.
I can tell. It's all in your jowls. Your jowls you don't have jowls anymore.
I know. I look like a Shar-Pei. It's all up in here and shit.
You look like fat bastard after the surgery.
Okay. Good evening, Nick.
Did we lose the weight the healthy way?
Hey.
Yeah, he walks a lot. He walks like he'll tell me how he walks miles a day at work.
Every day at work, man. I'm on my feet from 5 a.m. till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, walking.
You're looking healthy.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Hey, good to see you, Nick. Man, I ain't seen Nick in a long time. I haven't been around in a long time, but good to see you, buddy. Hope all is well with you.
And I know he keeps talking about wanting to defend his fantasy football championship.
Yeah, man. He can come out there. I ain't seen him. Come on back.
I know.
Yeah, man. We only got 50 days until the NFL kicks off, so times are fleeting here.
Yep. The fantasy stuff is going to start moving here. I'm sure David's going to put out some information within the next week or so, and then we'll go from there. It'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yes,
all right.
All right. So I got a couple news stories to hit off first. Number one is Jacoby Jones passed away this week, and he was only 40. There's been no cause of death revealed. Been nothing much shared about it except for he died suddenly at his home.
What a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 40, Jesus. He had the Mile High massacre there, did they call it? And, hell of a player.
It's crazy when you, I don't know, like this past week, like there was a bunch of celebrities and things of that nature that passed away, like Shannon Doherty and Beverly Hills 90210. It's just, it's crazy to consider. I mean, for me, Jacoby Jones is younger than me. All the other people were older than me, but Sean and David, your age, what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it because you're old. I mean, you're not all that much older than me, but in the grand scheme of things, you look at these folks, you're like, man, I mean, especially because, I remember a time when I was young and my parents would talk about, this celebrity that passed away or this celebrity they grew up or this athlete that they grew up with, watching. And it's like, I'm looking at them like, yeah, they're ancient. I mean, they might have been like 50 and I'm like, I'm 12 and 14 and 18 and I'm like, they're ancient, whatever. But now as I'm getting up older, I look at this and the fact that Jacoby Jones passed away, what a tragedy, regardless of, I mean, I really don't care about the cause of death. I know it's going to come out at some point, but it's just 40 years old is just a damn shame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know.
Have any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I don't know if it was an illness because they said he was surrounded by his family. So whatever, I don't think it was anything like, what's the word I'm looking? Controversial.
Nefarious. Nefarious seems to be the new word of the day.
Nefarious means he was surrounded by his family. So whatever had happened.
That just sucks.
And that is a shame.
All right. So we'll move on to the second story of the week. I know there's going to be a lot to be said about this, and I think Jeff just did an 8-page diatribe to the internal chat about this one. But Brandon Ayuk is back. He hasn't left our radar, and it's he's requested a trade. He's formally requested one.
By the way, I did not write that. That was a Steelers article in which I copied and pasted into the chat for Eric because it came from the Steelers, not from some rant. Like I didn't type all that. I read it and I was like, ooh. But anyway.
No, just real quick to answer, Anthony. No, he was 4 days past his birthday.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Still crazy. But the Ayuk thing is interesting, Sean. It's a good point to bring up, right? I mean, there's obviously at this time of the season, right? There's a requested trade. Now it's a matter of what teams fit the mold. And of course, you go back to the end of the year when this started to be speculation. Obviously, the Steelers lined up because of the fact that, Tomlin and Ayuk looked alike. I mean, that was the match, right? And they had conversations. But there's value add to Ayuk joining the Steelers. That's a real location where he could end up. But the interesting thing, I guess you'd say, is in this moment in time, the speculation of where he could go is just, there's 32 locations or 31, excuse me, outside of, San Francisco could be a location because he's under contract for 2 years. So they may not trade him. They're asking prices high and all that good stuff. But really, when you look at the needs, a lot of teams have a need. But you look at the salary cap, not a lot of teams are in that position. But I also look at some of the things like, and I'll use the Steelers as an example. And this is, I'm only using because Eric's right here, and it's not to crush the Steelers or talk nonsense. It's interesting to think about what the trade requirements are in this deal, and they're looking for a first-round pick for this guy, and he's going to come with a hefty salary, right? I mean, because that's what he wants. But the reality of it all is, a team like Pittsburgh or a team like because Washington could do it with their cap, and they're willing to give up stuff, but. You talk about winning right now. There's about a handful of receivers that are on a team right now that are earning less, don't want more, they're fine, and there's trade conversations with them. So I'm just interested in the exploration from a team like Pittsburgh, who Khan's been doing a good job in the offseason. You look at other GMs around the league. What does DeAndre Hopkins cost to move? What does Devontae Adams cost to move? You know what I mean? Like there's other, because those two have been talked about on the trade block forever over the last 12 months. And, obviously the Devontae Adams conversation has just gone more and more and more and more over the past couple weeks, even though his agent came out and said, that's speculative and it's baseless, which is fine. But aren't baseless speculations what Diggs goes and gets traded to Houston about? And I'm saying that in jest, but there's a bunch of these things that happen through conversations that aren't going to happen based on speculation that end up happening. So and it's not this isn't like an Eric, give me your reasoning behind why Pittsburgh wouldn't do that. It's just saying that there are contracted receivers currently on teams that will cost you far less to get, not just you, any team that's going to go, that isn't going to come with a huge price tag because he wants to get paid Justin Jefferson dollars, and he's not a Justin Jefferson receiver. I mean, he's a good receiver, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's not top 10, but he's still a good receiver. But still, it's a matter of, do I give away the value, or do I go get give away less value to get a good talent receiver? I mean, I heard a San Francisco to Raiders trade, which made a lot of sense to me based on what they could do, and Devontae Adams is going to leave, they say, just like everybody said about Diggs. I mean, that's my diatribe. I think it's really interesting.
Well, I think the one thing that, I'll say this and I'll keep saying it. Ayuk is talented. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that he's not. But I think the one thing that we overlook in a lot of these wide receiver situations is a system and a fit. And I look at Brandon Ayuk as a guy who, like I said, is a talented receiver, but he fits great in that system because the offense that San Francisco runs is so diverse that it creates mismatches. I don't know if Brandon Ayuk translates to a team that he would have to deal with the doubles and all that other stuff that comes along with being a number one. Not that he doesn't have the talent to, but I think certain receivers are set up to succeed based in a system. And so that's my only issue with Ayuk. Like, I understand the receiver market is what it is, just like the quarterback market and Daniel Jones getting paid all that money and guys that we, shake our head with the money. But that's what the receiver market is set at. Mm. And so that's my only concern with a guy like Ayuk. Like Devontae Adams, he's a proven number one. He's played the number one position. He's done those things. Stephon Diggs the same way. DeAndre Hopkins that way. Ayuk has been a cast with a complementary group around him. I've never seen
the benefit of I mean, obviously Deebo Samuel gets a lot of credit, but I think Ayuk's a better receiver. I mean, a better used receiver because he's carried their offense. But again, Dave, I don't disagree with you in the sense that if you look at how Deebo and Ayuk run, they're gadget players. I mean, Deebo is more of an athlete in the grand scheme of things because he does a lot more from the backfield and stuff. But Ayuk can do it too. So it'll be interesting. But Eric, what are your thoughts about Ayuk? And regardless of where he goes, I mean, what do you think at this point of where he's at?
So this is interesting, right? So do you guys watch Hard Knocks at all?
Yeah.
The off season with the Giants. You know, when you talk about speculation and guys like the GM, I really enjoy watching the New York Giants GM work because he's like, yeah, they're probably speculating and that'll drive up Saquon's market. And I mean, he's right. The speculation does drive up the market because what gets said, you know, gets to an agent, then an agent, you know, then drives up the price, and then he's trying to make a deal. It's a fascinating series. I'm not a Giants fan, but I'm really enjoying keeping up with them. I think Brian Daboll's a genius watching him. I'm impressed by him every time I listen to him. But as far as Ayuk, what is his real value? What is it going to be when he gets traded? That's the key here. Is it a first-round pick? I don't know if I give one up, though. There was a historically great deal for a team with Duck Hodges that did a first-round pick that got them to 8-8 because that player was such a difference maker on a really bad team that year that it was worth the first-round pick. He was fantastic, and he single-handedly changed a 3-13 team to an 8-8 team. So, I mean, ideally, does he make that sort of impact? I don't think he does. I don't think he's that game changer wide receiver, but he's worth a solid second-round pick. So if the 49ers come down on their price and you can get him for a second-round pick, sure, I'd do that.
Do you guys think he, if they don't trade him, do you think he sits out?
No.
No,
I don't think so, only because of the fact that he's got 2 years on his contract. Sitting out for him will do him no good. I mean, it's not like this is the last year of his contract where he can sit out 8 games and then come back and get paid. Because, again, all you're doing is you're going to sit out those 8 games, lose that money, and you're not going to do yourself any favors, because if you sit out and you decide to hold out and San Francisco don't trade you and you don't come back by the 8th week, your contract tolls, which means that they have you for another 2 years. So there's no good outcome for him at this point. If he was in the final year of his contract, maybe you do sit out the first 8 and come back so you don't get, you don't have to replay on your same contract the following year. I could see Brandon Ayuk as more of a mid-season trade candidate for a contender if it gets to that acrimonious point where he becomes a distraction to the team. But again, I don't think there's any value for him to sit out. I think if he's a good soldier, I think he does what he has to do and then maybe gets traded.
I disagree. I disagree with you in only one regard, right? Because I'm not disagreeing with you from his perspective, what he does. I am disagreeing with you from the 49ers perspective of what they do. They have the idea, and this is not like a made up thing. Like, they want to win a Super Bowl right now. Like they want to do it right now. They really have a very short window here because they're still paying Brock Purdy $800,000, right? Or whatever small amount. He's not getting paid millions of dollars, so they have the ability to do some things. Well, in 2 years, they're going to have to either, I guess you would say, the proverbial shit or get off the pot, because Brock Purdy's going to be pushing for $60 million a year because he's good. I mean, if he has a repeat performance like last year, bottom line is NFC Championship, Super Bowl. If he does it again, there's no – I get it. He's the last pick overall. It only lasts for a contract. So at the end of the day, while he's maneuvering, we'll see. But all that being said, I think that it's a distraction right now. You said if he gets to become a distraction, it's already there. And the thing is that someone like Harbaugh and John Lynch, by the way, this isn't like some I'm a business guy and I'm gonna do this stuff. They actually, both of them know what it's like inside of a locker room, inside of a team, and all those dynamics. And the reality is today, July 17th or whatever it is, or 18th, I don't even know what the date is, but it's a distraction right now. So if they can move on from them, I would tell you that I think it'll be within the next 7 days if they can get what they want. To your point, they're going to or who did I say?
Yeah,
You said Harbaugh.
Oh, Harbaugh. I meant Shanahan. I mean, it's he's been around the league. I'm sorry. I was in my mind. I was thinking Harbaugh from when he was back in San Francisco. Now he's with the Chargers. My bad. But either way, they understand how this stuff works. But John Lynch is sitting there saying, I don't want my locker room to deal with this drama when we don't have to. So anyway, I think something's done. I think the trade deadline does offer more value because it becomes a necessity for a team to overpay if there's a level of injury or a push for the playoffs or a push for real competition. But I don't know. I think they're already there. I think they're already there at the distraction.
So let me just say this to Anthony, and one other point, then I'll let Eric speak on it. So, do I think they pay Purdy now? I don't know what their cap situation is, but I don't think they can afford to pay Purdy now. But the only thing about Purdy, which is interesting, is, we talk about these quarterbacks and we talk about their contracts. The thing about the 7th round pick in a draft is they're under contract for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think this is Purdy's year where his contract is going to become due. So I'm at the point where I think they have to pay him after this year, or it might be 4 years. I don't know exactly.
It's 4. He's got 2 years left.
Okay, so I think Purdy gets taken care of next year. Now, the one interesting thing, and I'll bring this up and then I'll let Eric expand on it. Would it be interesting, based on the chatter and based on the Ayuk's and Antonio Pierce's connection and the talk of Davante Adams and his – would it be a stretch to see a Davante Adams for Ayuk trade where you're getting older?
It's not a stretch, Dave. That is the most logical spot, and it's the most logical spot if Ayuk if the Raiders adjust the payment, if Adams is willing to maneuver his contract. It's a win because Adams will take that and he will go to a Super Bowl contender and Ayuk would go. So what is that a one for one swap? Is that a Ayuk for Adams swap? And if that's the case, I mean, if I'm just saying, if that's the case, that it makes the most sense out of anything.
Well, I would think they'd have to give up like a 3rd or a 4th round pick only because of Davante Adams' age compared to Ayuk's. But let me ask Eric, because he's been sitting down there and we've been talking. Eric, what are your thoughts on that?
Hey, I just want to point out, I had a semi truck pull up to my window, and I live on a small road, and they must know I have dogs, and they must know I'm on the show at 8:00. So if they're watching, I appreciate you watching and rallying and honking at my window at 8:00 to get the dogs going. So as far as the Ayuk and the Raiders thing, I don't think it happens unless they trade Adams, and then it's a domino effect. Adams goes to the Jets, and then they get Ayuk.
I think it's Ayuk to the Niners. I think that, Adams to the Niners. I think that's an easy swap to make.
I think it's a domino thing. I think it happens because of another thing happening, and that's just my opinion. I could see Adams. If Adams gets traded, he's like, hey, I really want to go with Rodgers, and that's where I'm comfortable, and he forces his way. Because players can do that, and they do have a little pull on where they end up going based on interactions and all that. So what would Anthony? What would the Jets trade for Davante Adams? Whatever Aaron Rodgers tells them, because that's what they're doing right now.
Hassan Riddick. That's so funny to me, by the way. So funny to me.
And crazier things have happened, right? So it could happen. So I would guess probably a 2nd and some combination of a 4th and a 5th.
Well, and I don't disagree, Eric. And the only reason why I think Adams to the Niners makes sense is because it's a pretty much straight up trade. I mean, you might have to give up something, Dave, for age, but they're saving money because at the end of the day, the Raiders are going to be paying more once Ayuk gets there. That's a sign and trade type thing, so they know what they're getting. But I mean, moving to any other team, it's just going to be draft picks. There's no names going to be moving anywhere from like Jets. Jets will be giving up picks, and I mean, but at this point, without me actually looking at salary caps and who has what space to maneuver, they may have to move on from a player to do it because money wise. And I know
but here's the more important thing that you don't look at, Eric, and this is why I think theoretically it's great, whatever Aaron Rodgers wants. But the fact is Aaron Rodgers doesn't run the San Francisco 49ers. He probably wishes he could run the NFL. But the fact is, any team that's going to make a trade with San Francisco is trying to win a Super Bowl. They're not going to give up Brandon Ayuk for future draft picks when they want somebody who's going to be on the field to help them win. Today,
they have enough. San Francisco has enough.
They don't. They don't have enough.
I think they've got some good weapons behind.
They just drafted a receiver this year.
Okay, he's a rookie. That's good, and maybe he's great, but maybe he's not. I know Brandon Ayuk, so I want a proven guy back. I want a guy who's going to help me win the Super Bowl as opposed to get me there possibly. So if
I don't disagree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Again, they're one of very few teams that are competitive in this league today, and they're not paying their quarterback. Why would I? I mean, because when they have to pay their quarterback, they're going to have to maneuver their team around because they got some contracts out there. I mean, some big contracts, hefty ones, from the Bosas to the Armsteads. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that are getting paid. Unless I think Armstead left this year. Either way, they still have a lot of people. I can't remember who they all have.
Oh yeah, no, they're paying. So, yeah, I just look at it as they want a return on their investment for this year. They don't want a future. I mean, it'd be nice because again, when you have to pay Purdy, you are going to have to replenish through the draft because you are going to have to cut bait on some of your high contracted players.
Hey, but again, can I make a statement real quick? And this has, and I'm sorry, Sean, I don't want to take the show off the rails. I just got to make one comment that Eric has said it numerous times, and I have to address it. So I like Hard Knocks, and listening to Brian Dable, he's smart. I got it. I've never sat there and listened to 32, 64, 90, 96 offensive coordinators. I'm pretty sure they're all pretty bright and in their own right? But I don't understand why Dable gets all this credit for great coaching. I just want to throw it out there for you, just for your understanding. He had the number one offense in Buffalo in his last year in Buffalo, and that's great. He did an excellent job. Buffalo's had a top 4 offense every year since that time anyway. But here's the deal. Do you realize in his career as offensive coordinator, the top 10 finishes he's ever had were 3 in Buffalo with Josh Allen at his quarterback. Just so you know, he never finished below or above 18, meaning top 18. And he finished 30, 32, 32, 32, 32, and 24 in offense in his career as a coach. So he's brilliant. And oh God, I wish he was back in Buffalo, said no one ever. But I will say this, the dude's a fucking guy. He's great, but he's not amazing. I mean, he's better than average. I mean, no, he's not, because his average is above 20. So anyway, I'm just saying it because I just keep hearing you tell me about how good he is. Historically speaking, because that matters. His hardware, because he got Coach of the Year, awesome, great. Ron Rivera forgot they were playing still because Ron Rivera wins. But I just wanted to throw. I mean, I wanted to take our show off the rails for a second to just address the silly ass Brian Dable comments as if he's a good coach.
Listen, just because Eric wants
sorry, Sean.
Go ahead,
You're
Sean.
making him flex, dude. You don't get him excited. Eric, you have the final word. Then I'm moving on to my next one.
Hey, so he took we rail on Daniel Jones all the time. This guy's a terrible quarterback. He took the Giants to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and was competitive in the divisional round. So I mean, give him credit. That team was terrible, And he
Hey,
took
and you know what? For you're right. He took Daniel Jones to a 24th ranked offense that season. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. That dude should get all the credit in the
I thought
world.
I had the
Fucking
last
amazing.
word. I thought I had the last word. Moving on.
You did, but I got to debunk the bullshit you said. It's like it's fake news.
Nobody ever has the last
I'll be
word.
quiet. I'll be quiet. You get the last
You got
word.
to
Eric.
embrace the Dookie.
I'm sorry.
Embrace
I'll be
the
quiet.
Dookie.
I'm even muting myself. Continue. I'm sorry.
Moving forward, I think Dayball. Look, Barkley had I think was that the year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a great Giants historian. I don't pay a lot of attention to the Giants. Was that the year Barkley was hurt, and so he took the Daniel Jones Giants?
No.
Or did Barkley was okay?
No.
Remember,
so Eric, the answer to your question is we argued this last off season when David was telling me that Daniel Jones was going to be a $40 million quarterback, and I said Barkley was 80% of the offense, and they're going to pay this dude all that money. And then, oh, by the way, if you like the GM's conversation in Hard Knocks, then you would have liked when he said, I'm not going to hand the ball off to my $12 million running back and let my $40 million quarterback just hand the ball off to him, because that's how you Barkley was talking.
Yeah, hammered. They were hammering Jones pretty good because you could see they're considering moving on from him a couple of times. And what was really great, the last word we're going to move on, is the heartburn that Mara gets when Barkley moves on to the Eagles, because he's losing sleep, and you can see him aging in that conversation. So I don't disagree with you. You're right there on Jeff. Point to you.
All right. So next one, final news story. The NFL released team revenues for 2023. And each team made an average of $402.3 million. See, this is what I don't understand. Next time a franchise comes up for sale, we just need to apply for it because we could prove that we could pay for it. We don't have the money. We don't have billions, but it can work. So the only Green Bay did lose. Well, they didn't lose, but they made $60 million less last year than they made the year before, which is a pretty big hit. But considering that this was about, when you add it all up, it's like 12, almost $13 billion. And Goodell's plan is by 2027 to have the league generating $25 billion a year. Now, I'm already paying through the goddamn nose for all these freaking games. I mean, are we talking it's going to take am I going to have to take out a third mortgage on the house just to get a goddamn NFL Sunday ticket? What's going on here?
So here's what I'll say, first of all. So those teams who the average was $402 million per team this year.
Yes.
Well, if the NFL is unsuccessful in their appeal of the Sunday ticket lawsuit, this year's revenues will go to pay the fans back all the money they spent for the last 12 years from watching Sunday ticket. Every team will have to pay $400 million at least to settle the class action lawsuit. So teams would actually lose a year of revenue if the Sunday ticket lawsuit doesn't get dismissed or
it doesn't increase because it's a anti-trust law, and it can be increased by 3 times.
Well, it does. It automatically increases. So the $4 billion lawsuit that they filed, or the $4.6 billion, it already, based on antitrust law, it already goes up to $14.2 billion. That's what the NFL would have to pay. Every team would have to pay $400 and some million. So they would lose a year's worth of revenue to settle that.
But I'm sure there's some level of insurance policy. They're not going to lose any money. Real quick, we had this conversation about owners and business and winning and all this stuff. I recently, and I don't know when this interview was done. Snoop Dogg had an interview. He was trying to buy the Ottawa Senators, and I don't know if this was recent or years past. I have to look at the timeline. It was really interesting to listen to Snoop Dogg talk about why he wanted to buy the Senators and what his intent was. And it's funny, throughout the entire conversation, the conversation lasted a little bit of time. And the entire conversation, there was no conversation about players, quality of players, age of players, Everything was about uniform change, marketing, business. And I'm telling you that for the most part, majority owners are about the business. They can say they're going to put out a product that's going to win championships because we care about championships, and maybe they do, but I promise you, it's not paramount. It's not the number one thing, because the reality of all this stuff is we're paying to watch it, and we're going to continue to pay to watch it because it's the way it is, and the numbers continue to go up regardless of the quality of team you have. In baseball, the Pirates, the Angels, they still make money. If the average is $400 million, who was the worst team in the NFL this year? I mean, it was the Bears, right? It was the Bears. And the Bears, or no, it was Carolina, but they traded the pick. It's Carolina. But they made $400 million. They don't give a shit about winning. Tepper is a billionaire, and he's going to continue to be that, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're fans of teams. Owners are fans of money. Okay, they change uniforms. They do all these things for one reason and one reason only. It isn't to appease the fans and say, "Oh, look at that!" It's to sell merchandise.
Sell.
They don't care. We do. We as fans want our teams to be champions. Blah blah blah, and that's what draws us and sucks us into buying Roethlisberger, Bennett, Porter, Ward jerseys, put them on our wall. But at the end of the day, the owners don't care if they're win or not, because they're still going to get their money. And that's what owners are fans of. End of the day.
I love it.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yes and no. So I do think you get certain franchises, cities that have that attitude, like, hey, we're going to just be okay being us, and we can get away with that. If you go to Green Bay, you go to Pittsburgh, go to Buffalo, you go to some of these more
Blue collar?
blue collar, yeah, I can't speak, blue collar cities. I think the level of accountability for the owner, they know, like, hey, I think Rooney feels pressure. That's why he came out and he was like, hey, we've got to start winning in the playoffs. And he made that an ultimatum. Things have got to change.
Hey, Eric, can I say this with 100% certainty? The Rooney family is look, as much as I bust your balls about the Steelers, because I will always do so, the Rooney family will always be my favorite ownership team that exists. And I do believe that the Rooneys have that level of desire to win. It's in there. It's historically prevalent, right? And I'm not doubting that. So that I'll give you that. But I will say this to you, and to contradict those things, a Buffalo Bills franchise, 25 years in a row without making the playoffs, right? Yet I think out of those 25 years, I think only 2 years they didn't sell out all the games, right? So the hope, because Ralph Wilson, before he passed and before Pagula bought it, they bring in a player. Mario, I mean, Buffalo, I don't want to say they didn't bring in players to make a difference. They just didn't. Their draft classes sucked. They just weren't good. They made efforts, but at the end of the day, Buffalo's revenue never dropped, ever, throughout all of that. And I say that because, yes, I think owners in general feel pressure. Jerry Jones feels pressure, but here's the reality. If they win, he gets to be excited and he reaches a level, and they all reach a level of greatness, just like a jockey or horse owner, right? But the reality is I just made $402 million and I ain't win shit. You know what I mean? And because that's the business side of it all.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, after the season's over, when the season ends, that's what it turns into. Well,
Sure.
I made $402 million.
Sure.
I don't give a shit. I'm on the beach in Cancun.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I do think there's such a fine line between winning and losing. It's a very fine line.
I agree.
I think so. One brilliant move in March may not be so brilliant in August when the guy's motivation is lacking and he's not performing up to the level that you expected, and then that turns your franchise around. in a major turn because you were expecting something and you got a different thing. So the fine line of trying to define the balance of leadership and all the different things I preach on, those are very, very, very tough decisions. And I do think.
I didn't write it.
Anyhow, yeah. So some franchises want to win. Some franchises are like Carolina, and they don't give a shit. I mean, that's
yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Well, but I think to your point, I think it's like anything in business. The CEO, the owner of said company, hires guys to run their business, and if the business makes money, the owner's happy. And if the business does, and it's hiring the proper guys to make sure those guys put proper people in the places to.
Hey, check this out, David. To your point, 100% accurate. Let me just tell you. You know this stuff without knowing it, but check this out. There are football operations, which are typically the business side of it, and then there's operations of the business, which has all this brass that has nothing to do with football, and then there's the football side, the general managers and all that stuff, right? Here's the significant difference. The John Lynch's and general managers of the world and the Cons of the world, they care when they lose because that is their job and their job is on the line. That other side of the line, they don't give a shit if they win or they lose as long as they're selling whatever that it is they're selling to make more money. And I would tell you, if you were to look at any franchise, and I don't care what sport it is, if you look at the rise and fall of dollars and cents, look at where the business side of the house is moving, right? But it's very simple to see the football side. The general manager gets fired, but did the CFO get fired? Did the COO get fired? No, because why? They made $402 million and they won 2 games last season. You know what I'm saying? So there is a business side of the game, but the passion and the desire to win, that comes from the football aspect of it because one, they are typically the competitive people in life that are doing this stuff, and two, their very livelihood depends on it. And those CFOs and those COOs, they may leave that organization even if they had a big year, but I guarantee you if they left, go look at where they went to because it's somewhere above the step that they were at and they're getting paid more than what they got paid at their last job. I mean, that's the business side of it. But no, I don't disagree that the owners want to win. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think any owner goes to lose, but I don't think all of them are emotionally attached. They're attached to that number that Sean was talking about.
Yeah, and your point is exactly right. We can move forward. Once again, referencing Hard Knocks, Mara comes in and tells him, if I lose my top selling or my most popular player, I'm going to lose sleep. It's a twofold thing. One, he's important to the team. Two, he's selling a lot of merchandise. So that's where he comes in as a CEO. So that CEO, I like him, but if he doesn't have a good year and that happens that Barkley's gone, you can already see the writing on the wall. He won't be there next year.
I will almost guarantee you this. I'll be the guy in the beginning that says it right here in July. What is it? Is today 18th?
Yep.
17th.
The Giants missed the playoffs. The entire staff is fired to include the general manager, Brian Dable. They're gone because they made the choice to stick with the $40 million overpaid QB instead of paying their workhorse, which has been the workhorse after his injury. And this will be especially if Philly runs over them to death. It might not even be the end of the year. If Saquon Barkley has a 100+ yard, 3 touchdown game against the Giants during the season, that may just be Dable's nail to the coffin, but we'll see.
Yep. All right. So let's go on to the Hall of Fame inductees that were announced this week. So David, if you put up my first slides, please. All right. So Steve McMichael, the Bears guy, Randy Gradishier, Devin Hester, Julius Peppers, Dwight Freeney, Andre Johnson, and Patrick Willis have all made the Hall of Fame. There's been no contributors or coaches who were named, which I kind of like, because unless your last name is Sable, I don't think you should be in the Hall of Fame having anything to do with football if you're a contributor. But does anyone have any thoughts on these?
Well,
Eric.
Well,
whoever.
as far as contributors, I'll be voting for you guys on the show here as we get older, right? Because we contribute a lot to the game, do we not?
Yeah. My bust is already there.
Well,
I got arrested at Canton. It's not my
hey,
problem.
Sean, you put up a lot of bullshit. So, I mean, hey, it should be a Hall of Fame for that. But look, okay, I like Devin Hester. It's a no-brainer. He was a icon at his position. He did a lot. I mean, hell, he was a huge reason a Rex Grossman team got to a Super Bowl. So put him in the Hall of Fame for just that alone. As bad as quarterback play as the Bears had around, that team for years and years and years. I do think it's turning into the Hall of really good. So Julius Peppers was really, really good. I would lean towards that. But was I blown away with Dwight Freeney? I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel Andre Johnson had a couple really big years, but most of the time he was just a quiet, solid contributor. And Patrick Willis, if I remember right, he retired early. Did he not? Did he not?
He got hurt.
Well, that injury was gruesome.
Right. He had a gruesome injury. So these are really, really good players. Peppers probably deserves to be in it. He was an icon for the Panthers a long time. But Freeney, Johnson, Willis, not blown away with this list. I think you can find some old timers that probably see the games different, but that made more of an impact and more icon status. I think you've got to be a real icon to be in the Hall of Fame, not just a really good player.
Right. Well, I think, again, looking at.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, looking at this list, and again, I don't know how many of these guys were first ballot guys. I don't know if any of them were. I think based on this list, I think it would have been a good time to end the logjam of some of these other positional guys that have been kind of pigeonholed and stuck behind those 5-year guys that were so iconic that if you're going to create a list like this, whether it be a tight end or some position that is definitely difficult to get into, but you had to create a loosening of a logjam. This might have been the year to do that. I'll say this about Dwight Freeney. He was a great player. And I think the biggest difficulty with Dwight Freeney and understanding how good he was the fact that he played in Indianapolis while Peyton Manning was there. So all of the focus on Indianapolis of that time was Peyton Manning and the offense. The defense kind of went unnoticed. So as much as Dwight Freeney might have been Hall of Fame worthy, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that he was, but I'm saying I think it's easy to overlook. But
yeah,
the only other thing I'll say, and then I'll let you talk, is Steve McMichael. I'll say this again, and I said it controversially, and I'll say it again. I don't know if Steve McMichael don't have ALS, I don't think he gets voted into the Hall of Fame. At least not now. Again, we've talked about people who should have been voted in. Kenny Stabler, all these guys who passed away before they were voted in, even though they probably deserved to be there before. Maybe this is makeup. I just don't know if Steve McMichael had the career to be put in the Hall of Fame. And so that's my only controversial take is without his ALS, I don't know if he makes it. And that's just what I think. So.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, there's a couple things. So first, Devin Hester, I think, belongs there. And I don't think it's a Hall of Good. I think Devin Hester is a game changer at that position. The problem is that, I mean, you don't have kick returners. You don't have special teams players. I mean, we talked, Eric, you and I talked about the only Buffalo Bill that I truly feel has ever gotten stubbed is Steve Tasker, because I think he's arguably the best or one of the best special teams players to ever play the game. And special teams folks don't get in. I like seeing Devin Hester get in because Devin Hester, just like a Barry Bonds, if you will, is a game changer. I mean, you can't kick him the ball because he's going to take it back. You can't, if he intercepts the ball, he can take it back. He's just an amazing athlete, and he was really talented at that position. The fact that it was recognized by the Hall of Fame, I'm happy about because it gives the opportunity for other folks in that position to get there one day. Dwight Freeney, listen, I think he belongs there personally. But I guess the problem I have with it overall, I mean, because he individually is amazing. I think he had Mathis and he had Bob Sanders with the Colts, but the Colts never finished with a top 5 defense. Hence the reason why Peyton Manning never had the ability to be a Tom Brady, if you will, because he didn't have top 5 defenses in the playoffs like Tom Brady had for every single Super Bowl he won. I say that because like Freeney was good. Freeney impacted the game on every snap, whether or not he won that thing or not. Freeney was that good. Now here is my big argument with what was said of overall. I think that Andre Johnson is probably he should have been in a long time ago, in my opinion. Andre Johnson, you say it's quiet, and he was. He wasn't a rah-rah dude. He wasn't that guy, right? But I don't know if you know, but he always was on top of the league in touchdowns and yards and targets and receptions. Always. Damn near year in and year out. Do you know who his quarterbacks were in his time as a receiver? I mean, and I think that matters because none of them ever finished good. Because Andre Johnson's quarterback was like Matt Schaub. Like I think he had Jake Delhomme and Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had Case Keenum and Sage Rosenfels, for Christ's sake. So the reality to me is with all of the, I mean, and I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Don't get me wrong; he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but every other quarterback on that list I mentioned is blah, average at best. I don't give a shit if Jake Delhomme took the Panthers to the Super Bowl. He's not. He's an average at best quarterback, right? So I look at that and I say, man, Andre Johnson balled out with some trash. I mean, not saying Jerry Rice wouldn't have balled out with Sage Rosenfels either, but he had Joe Montana that he made Joe Montana look about as equal to Steve Young, right? And I think Andre Johnson was able to do the same. I don't think every receiver in the NFL history that is great solely depended on a great quarterback. I think they made those quarterbacks really great. So anyway, those are the things. Or those are my arguments, if you will.
Wow.
Okay, and here's a quick list of the people who were up for this year and did not get in: Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Jahari Evans, Antonio Gates. That one's kind of got me. How the hell do you not fucking put that guy in? Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, and Darren Woodson.
My point about Steve McMichael, exactly. There's probably 4 guys on that list more deserving than Steve McMichael at this point.
Did Katie put this list together?
No, this came off the NFL website.
Yeah, but here's the
I mean, there were a lot more people but these were guys who were like in got to the finals.
No, wait a minute, Eric. Which Pittsburgh Steeler was snubbed this year that you'd like to speak on?
Hines Ward.
I mean, come on.
Come on.
I mean, how can
I don't think blockers are in the Hall of Fame.
Oh no. Is that who you're going to say, Eric?
Yes.
Oh, listen.
I mean, this. Hold on, real quick. This is the Curtis Martin over Jerome Bettis bullshit. That the hate that goes on. A team has too many Hall of Famers, so it's like socialism. It's like you've got to have higher standards to get in there. The guy's a Super Bowl MVP, has 1,000 receptions, played with some shit quarterbacks until Ben got there for half his career. Tommy Maddox, Kent Graham. Cordell was okay, but never a great passer. He went some shit quarterback. Mike Tomczak.
But your teams didn't have any losing seasons, so in Pittsburgh, that's a success.
Oh no, they did. They did have.
We had some losing under Cowher. Had some losing seasons.
Under Cowher.
Yeah. But I mean, whatever. Antonio Gates deserves to be in there. For Pete's sakes, Torrey Holt was great. I don't have a problem with Reggie Wayne getting in there, but some of Darren Woodson, he was good, but why is he?
Hey, so check this out, Eric. From a wide receiver perspective, I will tell you this: I believe Hines Ward can get in the Hall of Fame at some point, right? But I would tell you, those two on the list right here are ahead of Hines Ward. I will tell you another couple people that are ahead of Hines Ward, right? I would tell you Isaac Bruce is ahead of Hines Ward. I will tell you that he is. I will tell you that Sterling Sharp is ahead of Hines Ward. I will tell you that there's another guy I'll think of it. But here's the deal. Oh, easy to me. Steve Smith is ahead of Hines Ward. I think Steve Smith is far ahead of Hines Ward. But I do, and I know that makes you angry but they're the same guy, right? They're the same guy. But Steve Smith is about 4 inches smaller and is able to impact the game on every aspect of the game. I mean, so Steve Smith gets in before Hines Ward, in my opinion. But all that being said, Hines Ward is deserving of consideration, but I don't think he's snubbed. Now, Dave, to your point, Antonio Gates should have been in right now. Antonio Gates should, but I think everybody on this list will eventually get in. Jared Allen is going to get in. I mean, it's just who didn't get in this year. And to your point,
right. And I think the biggest problem is, and we saw it for years, okay, until they released the logjam of wide receivers. You had wide receivers who definitely, in some cases, deserve to be first ballot Hall of Famers that were sitting there 2 and 3 years because at the time they could only put 5 players in. You can only have 5 players, a contributor, and a whatever. So you had a logjam where how long did it take Art Monk to make it into the Hall of Fame? And then Andre Reed followed him, and so on and so forth, because you had 5 players total with all of the guys, and it was harder to get into it. It was more of an exclusive club, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So the criteria had to be really high. So when you had a guy like Art Monk who took about 4 opportunities to make it into the Hall of Fame, I mean, that was the difficulty. And so now that they allow more flexibility, you see guys come in. But again, I think the threshold is higher still, but you're seeing a lot of guys who are still impacted by that logjam of years and years of creating. And so I think they try to move players from different positions year in, year out.
Jeff, we're not going to get off the rails here, but you're talking about 2 different eras of football, right? So,
no. Steve Smith played throughout the entire era of your guys' football career.
No, he didn't. He came in later. So the year
he did what?
He came in later. Yeah, he came in later. Correct. So we're talking about an era. Do you remember the 2000 Ravens? My debate is the list of quarterbacks of who they played and why. They're great. Yeah, they played Kent Graham and they played Achilles Smith and they played. It was a different era of football where it was heavily dependent on the run. So you tell me they changed. Give me a point. Let me finish my point. Let me finish. Then because I'm going to make this point. If they change the rules because a wide receiver is killing people blocking and is that effective blocking, that is just as important as going out there and making a couple extra catches because he's changing the game blocking. Pettis is not probably as great as he is without Hines Ward out there killing linebackers and allowing him to get to the next level, get to safeties. There's a different level to this. I mean, he's breaking Keith Rivers' jaw.
That's awesome. Are you telling me that Smith didn't block?
Not like Hines Ward did.
Of course not, because he's not a Steeler. But I'll tell you, he did some cracking. I mean, I get it. Bottom line is Steve Smith is better than Hines Ward. And you want to know how I know? Besides just the stats, they don't even put fucking Hines Ward's picture on here because he sucks.
Oh, wow.
You know, and this is the argument, okay? Because look, if perfect example, okay, it's like the MVP award or anything else. If you vote the Hall of Fame just on stats alone, if you voted on stats alone, that's one thing. What is the criteria to get into the Hall of Fame? If you give me the criteria, then I could sit here and make a rational argument. It's like, okay, did Lamar Jackson truly deserved the NFL MVP award last year because Baltimore finished 15-2, or was it Baltimore's defense?
Dave, you're exactly right. And all I'll say is Myles Garrett didn't deserve the Defensive Player of the Year for the same argument.
Well, okay, and that's fine if that's your argument. And I don't.
No, but that's not. It's not the same argument.
I'm not going to argue that argument if we are just going off of stats alone, but we're not. We have to know what that criteria for Hall of Fame induction is.
Yeah, sure. Agreed.
So,
No, I don't disagree. One last question for Sean, and then I'll be quiet for this duration to our next segment.
We're moving on next segment next. Go ahead.
Real quick. What year did they change the rule, Eric? The blocking because of Hines Ward hitting people and breaking their jaws.
Was it 08 or
it was 09.
Was it 09?
That's a whole new era in 09. Hines Ward started playing in 98, and Steve Smith came in 2001. Whole different era 3 years later, but I'll tell you right now, dominated his ass off, better than Hines Ward. Moving on to the next segment.
All right.
Oh, God.
Oh, new era.
David's been wanting to talk about this for a couple of weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to him for a little bit so he can go through training camp. We have one fucking team in training camp that started today. They
reported over the weekend.
Sit-ups and 9 push-ups and whatever. So, David, you got 10 minutes before we go into buy or sell. Go ahead and talk about it.
So
Ask
Sean,
the guys anything.
I want to ask you your knowledge because you talk. So what type of calisthenics do they do in training camp? You said that you know training. So how many wins?
Shit, dude. That's my whole point. I don't want to talk about it.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So anyway, let's talk about training camp a little bit. Their rookies reported for Baltimore on Saturday. I think pretty much the training camps get going by the end of this weekend. I think everybody will actually report and be practicing. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about some interesting training camp battles. And I'm not talking about Pittsburgh and Buffalo right now. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk about their quarterback position. They got Sam Darnold. J.J. McCarthy was drafted to come in. What do you see happening? Does J.J. McCarthy take the field this year? Does Sam Darnold get to run the team? Jeffrey, I'll start with you.
No, I mean, I don't think he does. Well, it's going to be a depends, right? I don't know if Minnesota truly feels as though they're competitive, right? But I mean, maybe they want J.J. McCarthy in there, but they want him to learn. I think Sam Darnold is going to start week 1, right? And I think that depending on the way the season's going is going to dictate if Sam Darnold's their quarterback for the year or if J.J. McCarthy is going to get some snaps in play. And I mean, that's a BS answer because that's an obvious truth. But the reality is if Sam Darnold can come out and hit Justin Jefferson and do what they do, and they put up some points and they make some wins and they start off maybe 2-1 or 3-1 or 3-2, I think they're going to continue to go. Now, if they start off 0-3 or 0-4, the season for them will be scrapped, and I think that JJ will start getting snaps. But I also think it depends on what that line looks like. What is the pressure to Darnold? I mean, they don't want – because remember, we can talk a lot about historical things and teams like the Joe Burrow, where me and you, it wasn't me and you arguing. I was irate that they dropped Burrow back in week 2 for 68 passes with a horrible offensive line. 2 weeks later, Joe Burrow's out for the year with a torn knee, whatever he did, ACL or whatever injury he had. But we can look at that and say maybe some teams are gun shy. Don't forget their draft pick from last year. He started, and then he did not play again for the rest of the year because he got hurt, right? So you draft J.J. McCarthy high in the draft to be your future potentially. Are we gonna be a little gun shy if you start to see Darnold start to struggle? And I think maybe they may be a little bit gun shy to get him out there because they know that he's a work in progress. He's not a J.J. McCarthy in no way from anybody's perspective is a walk on the field starter day one in the NFL. His numbers in college don't lend to that.
Right, and the fact that he hasn't signed his contract yet kind of complicates things also. But Eric, your thoughts on that positional battle in Minnesota if you call it a battle.
I just want to point out we're not going to spend a lot of time on this either, but we do have a joint practice together.
Yes, we do. I was going to get to that. Don't worry. I was going to get to that.
But as far as JJ McCarthy, Jeff's got it. And if they come out and they start winning, Sam Darnold's going to play the whole year. If they lose 1-3, 1-4, it'll be the JJ McCarthy show.
Here's another interesting tidbit, Eric. I'll let you talk on this real quick. Over the weekend, Jordan Addison arrested for DUI. What do you think happens? Does he get suspended? League conduct policy? I mean, you're talking about an important part of the receiving corps in Minnesota. I mean, what does that do?
So, I mean, the integrity is like when a guy is in trouble, right? He gets suspended, and you uphold the suspension. The DUI. He's a young kid. We need to be, let he who's free of sin cast the first stone. We need to be understanding a little bit, but at the same time, rules were broken. Did he put somebody in danger? Did he put himself in danger? And what kind of message can we send here? Ideally, I think first time offense for a young kid, dock him a couple games without pay, and I think he feels that. Now, second time offense, you come down a lot harder, but you got to understand this is still, what is Addison now, 22? I mean, you still
that.
But again, you're also coming off of Kyrie Jackson getting killed in a car accident from a drunk driver. You're talking about 2 years ago, Henry Ruggs driving 150 into the back of a woman.
Yeah, I mean,
at some point the NFL has to really make a statement.
I don't think you suspend a kid a whole year for a DUI. And to be honest with you, what one of us can say that we didn't have to drive a short ways at some point, and that we're in that situation that we should.
I think the timing of it's interesting, right? Because the kid that died was a Vikings draft pick, right?
Yeah, he was a Vikings draft pick.
And then a week later, you get a DUI after your teammate was killed.
That's my point.
So I guess my point is this: I believe the NFL should leave it to the team to decide what they do. Let that be whatever they so desire. I think the behavior has to be curbed in some way. And is it a fine? Is it something more? Is it something I don't know legally what the Vikings are allowed to do, right? To in this situation, like in the military, it's different. You could do some things because the military. I mean, we can handle some stuff, right? But I mean, I think something has to be done in order to curb the behavior, because one, the kid who passed away at this point in time, he wasn't behind the wheel, regardless if he was drinking or not. That's not his thing. But your teammate just lost his life in an alcohol related incident. Now you go and do it. So is this showing a pattern for the team culture wise? And how do we as a team curb that behavior? And what is too harsh? What is not harsh enough? Because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think there's too harsh of a punishment if it saves the lives of a player on the Vikings or a person that doesn't play football at all. You got to do something. So, I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but I think something has to be done.
Yeah. So, I mean, ideally, what is driving these kids to go out there and drink and put themselves in that situation? We need to find that. Do we need to, fine the Vikings? Do we have a issue with Vikings management that isn't working with these kids? I mean, we need to kind of dig deeper into what the root cause of it is. And like, as a human being, I'm concerned Jordan Addison doesn't feel what just happened to Kyrie Jackson, because he's putting somebody else and himself in a dangerous situation. So at that point, I'm seeking some counseling for this kid to understand the gravity of what he's doing. Am I ready to throw him away and lock the key? No, that's not my job as a coach and as somebody running an organization, or as a leader in my community, is to help people develop and for the better, and to understand they're going to make mistakes. But the timing is extremely concerning, and I'm trying to understand what's going on in that mind.
Or just cut him. Hey, and I'm kidding about the cutting them thing. It's interesting, Dave, because it's two Viking incidents. One, obviously, again, I do not want to put any. I don't want to shoulder any of the blame or anything like that to the young kid who passed away. That's absolutely atrocious, right? But there was a team in the NFL a few years back. It's been a while now, that had constant legal issues. Consider ridiculous to me. And it's the AFC North led Cincinnati Bengals. You want to know what changed that? Firing Marvin Lewis, probably about 10 years too late. So I say that because, Eric, you talk about find the root cause of why these people are doing this thing. I'm not saying that people aren't going to drink and drive. I would tell you it's always funny to me in any atmosphere when someone gets crushed for drinking and driving because they got a DUI. And I just think to myself, how many times did y'all drive and just didn't get caught? Because you didn't get caught, you didn't get a DUI, but didn't mean I didn't see you drink. I know this. This is stuff that it's always really pissed me off because I'll watch the people who are in charge of making those things do those things, but it's not a big deal until someone gets caught. Then they treat them like shit. You don't got to treat them like shit. There's rules, regulations, cover it and move on. But don't treat someone like they're trash just because you didn't get caught. I say that because there's a culture.
It's not the action, it's the timing, right, Jeff? So that's the concerning thing is the timing of just a week later.
Exactly.
And so maybe it is Zimmerman, right? He's still the guy.
Well, he's new. No, it's new. Yeah, is it a new coach this year?
No, it's what's it?
Yeah,
they moved
on. McCarthy.
Yeah, second.
Yeah, so maybe
O'Donnell.
He's the young guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, maybe the young guy hasn't got a good footing yet. But it's something you gotta. As a coach, I'm putting everybody in the locker room and like, hey, we got stuff going on. We need to be smart right now. Yeah. I mean, it's time to have that conversation.
Sure, I agree.
Sean, do you have any input on that point?
No, amateurs.
Okay.
Got to know what you're doing. I'm a professional.
Yeah.
So now.
Wait, Dave. You know what made me? I got to tell you what made me laugh. There was a kid, a friend of mine, back in the day. It's been like years now, but he was like, "Hey, I got it. I'll drive." Like I'd been sober, like I didn't drink. And this dude was like, "I got it, man. I'll drive." He goes, "I drive better drunk." And I'd be like, and I remember when he said that, I was like, "Dude, like I don't know what you look at when you're drunk, but I'm telling you right now, you don't. I'm driving. You could drive drunk from where I'm going because I'm not riding with you. But it's funny how sometimes that's the thing. Right. I drive.
We got two more teams, and then we'll go on, Sean.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So, two more teams because we talked Minnesota longer than I wanted to, but I had that thing about Jordan Addison. So
go ahead.
Okay, Eric, Pittsburgh Steelers. Tell me about Pittsburgh and what do you think are the key things to training camp? What are you looking for in Pittsburgh? What do you hope to come out of after training camp?
So I won't spend a lot of time. The idea is to have a quarterback that wins the job and has a good handle on what's going to happen here pretty quickly. But what I'm looking forward to is the joint practice of like a Chase Claypool going up against a I don't know any one of the
Joey Porter Jr.
Joey Porter Jr. and having them get in a fist fight because Claypool was ready to fight many times over stupid shit like music. So I can imagine there's going to be a lot of crap talking going on. That'll be a fun joint practice. I'm willing to bet you there'll be a couple fights just because of the similarities of the two franchises at this time. Now, what needs to happen is Russ needs to come in there and get back to Russ, 33 years old. He needs to get in there and essablish himself as the alpha. He needs to make sure that he's there. They set up the young guys on the line, Frazier and Fatnu, end up winning their jobs. Because, if Dan Moore comes in, we're in trouble. Because he's turnstile. He's terrible. And Russ needs to be unlimited, man. He just needs to go out there and sling the ball. Be unlimited, baby. Let it go and let it ride. So we'll see what happens, but I'm really looking forward to it. I really wish we could all get together and go to that joint practice because it would be a lot of fun. Because I can see Chase throwing his helmet at people, getting cut the day after because he's losing his mind.
Well, we definitely can't see George Pickens doing that.
All right. So now, Jeff, in Pittsburgh, okay, I look for a couple of things. I want to get your thoughts. We've talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their propensity to not be able to pull off the big game and win when you get a guy like TJ Watt going down. The record is 1-12. So as Pittsburgh Steelers going into training camp, you're looking to try to solidify your defensive line. Do they need to find that depth to be able to overcome injury to their core, their central focus point being the defense?
Yeah, I mean, I always find it interesting in our conversations on our chat, and Eric consistently pulls up depth charts, and I think it's great. I mean, I think it's cool. It works well, but the depth chart pulling up doesn't equate to success for the Steelers. Depth chart has not equated or has equated to success for Buffalo, and those are the comparisons. He always shows the depth. I mean, when we have 8 starters out last year throughout majority of the season, we still finished in the top 5 in defense. It kind of shows something, right? All that being said, yeah, I mean, factually, 1-12 without TJ Watt shows that over the years there's been no depth. I know that they brought in Patrick Queen. That's not depth for Watt. I know they drafted a guy and they've had a guy sit back that had like 7 snaps for Watt, so he's like all of a sudden an all-pro. I do. I mean, I know Cam Hayward. He's coming down on the end of his career. What have they done to improve, and where is the depth? You know, I mean, TJ Watt is phenomenal. I mean, obviously, arguably the number 1 or number 2 defender in all of the NFL, and that's not like at his position. That's defender in the NFL. He is impactful. He's phenomenal. The dude is unstoppable, and he's arguably a first ballot Hall of Famer, if not like, I mean, he is. But again, it's a proven fact that without him in the lineup is an issue, and he's not getting younger. So at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I don't know what they have to do to address it, but they have to do something, and it's not bringing Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen will be all right. I know that Eric was happy with the signing of Buffalo's, like, I don't know, 75th captain because he's like important to a team, and he was all excited. That dude ain't shit. That's not depth. I mean, it might be. He's a role player. But anyway, no, I think all teams need to look at depth. I think when I look at the NFL as a whole, like Philadelphia on paper has the best depth in all of the NFL, but I think that it didn't prove to be anything last year. So I mean, I'm saying it like, you can show me a depth chart all day long. Let's see the facts on the team. So I think that Pittsburgh has not spent a lot of time on the offense. They've adjusted the offensive line by draft. They picked up Van Jefferson as a receiver. They addressed no real other offensive need. They have focused on the defense through the draft and through free agency, but I don't know if it's depth that they looked at, and I'm not sure that anything's going to help them at this point. But I'm sure that they're going to address, because they still have space, and there's still things that they can do, and there's still opportunities. There's still free agents. I don't think this roster that you have right now in Pittsburgh is going to be the opening. I mean, they're going to do something before opening day that's going to be that's going to improve both the offense and the defense. I don't think it's just a sit back and this is what we're going to go with. I think they gotta add something. I mean, Sue's a free agent still.
Gotcha. Well, you know, and again, I just for myself, I think the overall depth in Pittsburgh, again, systems are systems, and teams run certain things. If you got a guy who's on the field 90 to 95% of the snaps, and the only time that other player comes in is due to injury, okay, he might be a good player, but when you're stepping on the field, you know, 8-9 weeks into the season for maybe your 5th or 7th snap, okay, it takes time. And unfortunately, Pittsburgh will keep TJ Watt out on the field to exhaustion because he's their best player. And as you get exhausted, as you get older, you're more prone to injury. And that's just a fact. It's a fact. And so I think Pittsburgh needs to do a better job of rotating and keeping TJ Watt as fresh as possible throughout the year, so that his availability, if they are a playoff contender, his availability for the playoffs is more defined and guaranteed, as opposed to burning him out throughout the year to get there, to watch him in week 15 or 16 go down, and when the game is on the line and important, he's unavailable. And that's been Pittsburgh's basic problem with him, is when
is TJ Watt. I mean, I know he's a linebacker by trade. He plays on the end. I know, but is he considered an edge rusher, or is he a linebacker, Eric?
He's an outside linebacker, edge rusher.
Yeah, so he's an outside linebacker and edge. So if you watch, like in the Rams game, he dropped into coverage, was getting triple teamed, so they dropped.
He's great to drop into coverage. The dude's always playing good in coverage. I just didn't know
he picked
what his official.
So I mean, he's an outside linebacker, but I mean, the T.J. Watt thing, the injury was a hyperextended knee with a helmet hitting a hyperextended knee, causing an injury. It wasn't due to exhaustion; it was just due to being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Kind of injury.
Yeah, but it's also due to play in a position in which you're gonna do it. I mean, look, no one on that football field is injury free or injury nothing. And I talk shit and I say he's injury prone. That's just to piss you off because he's missed 13 games, right? I get it. It's not much in the grand scheme of his career, so it's not huge. But the reality is when he's not there, it's impactful to the team.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about more of his timing.
Sure. Yeah. But I think like what's interesting is like if I'm not mistaken, like Shaq Lawson's available, Shaq Barrett's available. Like these guys, they're out there, and they're not going to be demanding big dollars. So when I look at the horses Eric talks about, right? Because we always talk about horses. That I know you guys don't do rotational defense. Buffalo does. That's why I'm not concerned too much when you say depth, because we don't have, like you can say we have a starting group of people. And by play 3, they're off the field and there's new, fresh people. It's constantly all game long. It's just the way it is. In Pittsburgh, it's a different style. But if you have someone that's there behind Watt that could give him a breather but not lose that pressure and impact, or if Watt does go down, it doesn't completely change the defense. Because the reality is it's interesting that when Aaron Donald played football, offenses prepared to play Aaron Donald. They didn't give a shit about Jalen Ramsey. They cared about Aaron Donald. When teams play Pittsburgh, they give a shit about T.J. Watt. They don't care about Cam Hayward. They don't give a damn about Highsmith, and they couldn't give two shits about an old-ass Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, Minkah Fitzpatrick, the first year he came to Pittsburgh, man, best value trade ever in history of the game of football. I think Minkah coming from Miami to Pittsburgh, he killed it the first 2 seasons, but he's not there anymore. But I say that to say this: when T.J. Watt isn't in the lineup, they don't have to worry about. They just play a wide open game. It's fine. But with T.J. Watt not there, who is the guy that's going to be? They're not going to have the 20 sack guy, but they have to have someone that's going to truly force them to not, or to at least consider this guy. And that's what happens is they don't. Buffalo did not consider. I got it. Highsmith had a sack. Got it. Didn't give two shits. He could have 30 of them. We're still going to win the game. That's the mindset. I'm not saying that would have happened, but I'm saying is with T.J. Watt in the game, definitely a changer. It's just the way it is. It's just like with a Derrick Henry on the running back game back 5 years ago. You planned for Derrick Henry, and then Tannehill beat you with a play action pass to whomever was out there, A.J. Brown or whomever. But anyway.
All right, so we're gonna end on that one. We'll talk about other teams next week. Buffalo.
Hey, we got time next week.
But so we're going to move on to Sean's favorite segment, buy or sell. Everybody, are you ready?
Buy or sell.
I'd buy that for $1.
Need to buy it. I'm buying it. I'm buying it. I'm buying.
They're selling, Mortimer.
Look, lady, whatever you're selling, I ain't buying, yo.
Well, idiots. Get back in there at once and sell.
All right, would you bring up my slides, please? Okay, number 1. This is from the Bleacher Report. Hassan Riddick gets traded again. Eric, are you buying or selling this?
Well, we joked about it. It was funny. We were talking about it earlier, but I'm going to sell.
Okay. David?
I could, if they're really serious about Devontae Adams, which I don't know, I could see him packaged for that. It's hard to figure out right now, but I know he won't report until he gets a new contract, so I'll buy it.
Jeffrey?
Selling. He's going to get his money. It's just that, I mean, the Jets are playing a game, and the problem is this isn't a secret, right? I mean, they traded with knowing this stuff. They did their homework. They knew. I don't know if they knew it was going to take this long, but the bottom line is they're going to come to an agreement. They lost old boy, whatever his name was, that left the Jets to go to the Eagles to begin with. This is a replacement for him. They're going to pay him, and it's just a matter of when it gets done. It should have been done because he's missed every single thing up to this point with a new team. He needs to get on the field.
I am buying this. I think with everything that's going on, they're like, you're just one too many distractions. I wish I could sell this and he'd stay, but I think the Jets are going to be like, nah, let's just move on here. Okay, number 2 from the Bleacher Report. New Orleans trade Marshawn Lattimore before the deadline. David.
If he gets traded, he's going to be a trade deadline acquisition for a team that's in contention. I don't think he gets traded before the season starts. If a team has an injury and they're in contention, I think that he'd be a good trade target. I'd buy this.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the reason to do so at this point. I mean, I think New Orleans, again, the AFC or NFC South is still, even with Kirk Cousins going there, I think Atlanta has to be the favorite, but New Orleans still is a competitive team. So I don't think they're going to walk into the season and do it. It wouldn't make sense. Their defense has been suspect for a little. Cam Jordan's kind of getting older. I think Marshawn's still there. He still shuts down Mike Evans, so he's there for a while.
Okay. I'm going to sell this. Kind of same reasons for Jeff, as Jeffrey said. I think New Orleans defense is a lot better than we're giving them credit for. I think the team was just dysfunctional last year, and hopefully they're going to pull it back this year. Eric.
Yeah, what Jeff said. Unless they shit the bed, he'll be there.
Okay. Pittsburgh Steelers swing trade for Cortland Sutton. Jeffrey, are you buying or selling this one?
That specific receiver, I mean, Pittsburgh's going to trade for a receiver. I mean, I don't know which one. Ayuk is there, Sutton's there. There's a couple other guys. I think Pittsburgh has to make a move for a receiver because George Pickens is it. The rest are a bunch of douchebags. I mean, I say that with all due respect. I'm kidding. They're all great. I mean, they're good, but they're not. There's no. I mean, Eric talks nonsense about Buffalo's number ones not having any. Pittsburgh has no number threes. It's a one. Pickens is, and then a bunch of fours, and that's it. So they're going to do it. Cortland Sutton makes sense. And I think that. I mean, I don't know if it's. I'll buy it, but not knowing. I mean, if it's Cortland Sutton, cool. But they're going to trade for a receiver.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to buy it. I think he's a little more
inexpensive.
Well, yeah, but I think he makes a little more sense than Ayuk does. This guy, he's a stud. You put 2 number ones outside, you just change the complexion of your whole team. Eric.
Unless Calvin Austin develops, or Roman Wilson's gonna be fine, but he's probably not ready yet. So he's probably more of a 4, and Austin's probably in that tweener 4 area too. And the rest are douchebags. So I would definitely try to get another wide receiver. Sutton makes the most sense because he and Russ have a connection, and he had 13 touchdowns. So I mean, if I'm them and I'm Omar, I'm trying to cook that one up and wait the market out to get something of that value.
David,
I would sell this, and I only say this because again, I agree that I think Pittsburgh does trade for a wide receiver. I sell this particular player because with the Denver Broncos drafting Bo Nix, I don't think you can leave a quarterback like that on an island. Okay, and if you trade Cortland Sutton, you already got rid of Jerry Jeudy. You're bringing in a rookie quarterback, and you give him nothing. So you set him up. You're setting a rookie quarterback up for failure before he takes his first snap. If you get rid of the main guy, the main receiver on your team. Now, granted, Denver needs help in those areas anyway, but to lose your 2 starting wide receivers from a year ago after you draft a rookie quarterback, that's suicide. I don't think Sean Payton would even consider that.
It's like I don't know, getting rid of your great running back and your 2 best receivers and leaving your quarterback on an island in LA with the Chargers.
Sure.
Alrighty. Okay, so for the last one for the Bleacher Report, then we have another one coming up. But the Dallas Cowboys make a move at running back, meaning they're not going to stick with Zeke and what they got. I'm buying this. I don't think that that Zeke's got it. I think they're going to use him if they're, second down and 2 yards to go. He's a big body. He did show a little bit of promise last year, but that would be an interesting one. But yeah, they're going to move. They're going to do something. They haven't done anything in the offseason. They're going to make a move at some point before the season begins. Eric.
I'm going to sell, and here's why I'm going to sell. I think we think Jones is getting ready to move on, and I think the running backs are a position where you can afford to have a lesser name, Jalen Warren, come out of nowhere and do very well. And a lot depends on your line, so you don't necessarily need the big name at running back. So I'm going to say Rico, their running back, who's going to be behind Elliott, ends up being they see what they have with him and Deuce Vaughn, or little guys, but they see what they have, and I think Dallas is going to go through a transition that either Dak carries them this year and he gets a big contract, or they move on. So I'm gonna go ahead and sell. I'm gonna think they stay where they're at. They haven't done anything yet. I don't think they do anything later.
Yeah, I gotta sell this. I can't. I think if they were going to make a move for a running back, he would have been in camp. He would have been there in OTAs. He would have been in there. To make a trade now, it makes no sense to get a guy in a system without having any time to prep them. I think if Dallas was going to make any moves, it would have been before, and their main move was Ezekiel Elliott, and I think they're going to be happy, or not happy, but I think they're happy with what they got. And to Eric's point, Rico Dowdell is going to be their running back. So I sell it.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm buying it. They make a move, and I don't know if it has to be in a trade. I bust chops because I read a report a few months back about Najee Harris going to Pittsburgh or going to Dallas, and it made sense. I mean, it still makes sense to me that they would move. I mean, it makes sense that Pittsburgh moves on from Najee because the contract year is going to be next year. It would make sense for Dallas to get him because they want a good young running back that's powerful. But bottom line is that I don't see that happening, at least right now, unless of course trade deadline move. Maybe if Pittsburgh isn't doing well and Dallas is making a run, they may do it. But I doubt either of those things are going to happen. But there's free agents that are existing, and that's making a move at running back would include free agents. You got Delvin Cook still out there. You still got Kareem Hunt that's still out there. You got Latavius Murray, Melvin Gordon. I know Melvin Gordon's past his prime, but at the end of the day, well past his prime, and he's old as hell. But Cam Akers is still out there. There are available running backs that I believe would shore up some of that depth. And to Eric's point, yeah, Elliott's there, and your 2 other backs are small guys. I don't think Elliott is the workhorse that he once was. I get it that he can still run for some first downs, and he did decent in New England. I don't think he did anything exceptional. I don't think any of those running backs that I just made mention of are going to be costly. Dalvin Cook may hold the biggest price tag, but Dalvin Cook played absolutely zero last year in the grand scheme of things. So no, I think that they definitely make a move before day one of the season. Trade, probably not. Free agent, they'll pick up somebody.
All right. And, they're paying Zeke $2.1 million this year, but they also owe him I think it's $4 or $6 million from when they got so he's not getting paid $8 million this year. So, it's all from the Cowboys. Yeah. All right. Before we move on to the last one.
Go ahead. I was going to say, do you feel better that his career doesn't end with Dallas on the worst and last play of a game?
No, that's the best last play.
No, yeah.
Like I got to tell you,
I'm sorry. The worst play in NFL history was that fake punt that everybody lined up on the far side of the field, and it was just the quarterback, the Colts play. That was the worst play ever.
Dave, got to tell you, that's a bad play. But it is. But it's comparable. It is comparable to watching Zeke get destroyed off the line and then back get killed. Right, he threw the ball away. No, they're both equally probably as awful.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, next week we're going to bring back the win or lose because we didn't do it this week. So we'll do the next. We'll probably do a couple divisions if we don't get too tied up there. All right. So our last buy or sell from me. Brandon Ayuk signs with New England. Buying or selling, Eric?
Boy, will that make things interesting, right? Because I mean, he could potentially. I like Polk and I like some of the young receivers that New England had. I know Jeffrey doesn't, but I think Drake May is. I'm going to say this on July 17th, 2024. Drake May will be the offensive rookie of the year, and so I'm gonna call. I'm okay with saying that. Jeff can bring it up later and make fun of me if it blows up in my face and he throws 32 interceptions. So that would, I think, definitely New England's got a great defense. Any little help you can to that offense, they're going to be competitive. So I'm going to buy it. I like that as a destination.
Well, if he was a free agent, I would buy it as a trade because I can't just sign him.
Okay, well, it gets traded then. Don't get into semantics. You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but I'll sell it because again, I don't think San Francisco has to move him. And again, it's what they would get back. And San Francisco being in that Super Bowl window without having to pay $60 million for a quarterback, they would have to be blown away with an offer. And I don't think New England has anything of value to push them over the top. So again, San Francisco holds all the cards in this Ayuk situation, and New England doesn't give them anything that would push them over the top. So I sell that.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with David. I mean, that's the thing is that they're gonna Ayuk will be gone, I believe. I don't think it's to New England because to David's point. And I don't care if Brandon Ayuk was on the Patriots. They might win 5 games this year as opposed to 4 because that's what they're going to win. Drake May does not win Offensive Rookie of the Year because he doesn't have anything to get. There's no one out there that's going to do anything, and his coach has no proven track record to show. Yeah, I'm just saying. So, but that's all rebuttal to Eric's comment. But no, I think Ayuk gets traded. If he ends up in New England, Sean, I mean, I think that's I mean, it's possible. They got cap space. They need a receiver, but they would have to be willing to give more than what regular teams are giving, meaning that in order for New England to get him, they'd have to give up a first, second, and then Bill Belichick's long-lost child.
Matthew Judon.
I mean, that would probably be – I mean, it'd have to be somebody – I think they need a swap for swap. I think they need an offensive player for an offensive player, meaning that they have to get a replacement receiver. That's why, in my mind, it only makes sense to go to maybe the Jets, to the Commanders, or to the Raiders. But that's just me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think the Commanders make complete sense for Brandon Ayuk to end up there, but New England makes the most sense to me because they have the money, because they have a need for it. And let's face it, even if he goes there, they're not going to be much better, most likely. So even if they did like a second and a fourth for him, they're going to get a high second-round pick, a high fourth-rounder. That's something you could package up and possibly, push up to the first round. I think if he's going to be that much of a distraction, they want to get him out of there. And, besides sending him to the Jets, the black hole where people's careers go to die, New England right now makes the most sense. Except for the the Raiders, that's a black hole in itself, but they're going to be better this year. So,
well, it's funny to your point, Sean, and you talk about it is that the cap space. The Patriots definitely have a lot. I mean, they're the number one cap team, right? They have the most amount of space. The Commanders are right behind them. I mean, like directly right, like there is a gap between everybody else. I mean, but anyways, so you're right. But they both have a need, and I think that they both, and that may be an interesting thing, Dave. That you maybe, I mean, your point is well taken, Davey, because I think they that San Francisco wants something because they want to win now. But when you consider what you use from a Denver Broncos perspective about Bo Nix, well, the Commanders drafted Daniels, right? No, Daniels.
Yeah.
And New England with May. Having an Ayuk on that team for either one of those two definitely benefit them. So I'm saying that because what is it? And this is where we'd really have to lay it out. Like we'd have to actually get knee deep in this real conversation. I know that we're not doing that, Sean, but we'd have to get knee deep in. What is the value held by both the Commanders and the Patriots that they could lure that trade, even though they're not going to be able to trade a value player for a value player, because I don't think either one of those want to lose a player to get a player at this point. But they both have high draft picks.
Well, this is what I would say.
Say it for the last word, David.
Say
it. You got the last word.
I'll say it. I'll say it. And this is my point.
I'll say it.
If San Francisco is in a win now mode, okay? I get that the teams might have high draft picks next year. They might not. Somebody might be C.J. Stroud. Washington could surprise the NFC East. Doubt it. New England could win 5 games, probably. But the more important question, I could understand the trade being made if Brandon Ayuk was in the last year of his contract. Then it would make sense. Because he has 2 years and San Francisco's in win now, they would have to, for example, if they wanted to trade Brandon Ayuk to Washington, they'd have to probably give up a second-round pick, and Terry McLaurin would have to come back to San Francisco because that's the amount of leverage that Frisco has over any team. Okay, it would be like if Ayuk wanted to go to the Jets, the New York Jets would have to trade Garrett Wilson back to San Francisco. Okay, so you're doing because San Francisco's in a win now, and you got 2 years of a receiver under contract. He has no leverage. Regardless of the distraction it might be, you're not going to give up that player if you have the opportunity to win a Super Bowl and you were an overtime period away from actually doing it last year. So that's my point. The leverage
I agree with you.
Right.
But what I'm saying, Dave, I don't disagree. But what I'm saying is they'd have to be able to wow you with some shit that isn't being asked right now. What I'm saying is the conversation has been a first-round pick. In order for New England or Washington, I think, to really make it worthwhile, they'd have to do some multiple picks. It'd have to be something that's going to wow them. But I tell you, because Eric has, so wonderfully stated that he really likes the young core of receivers in New England. I mean, they could give up, their best receiver in Juju Smith-Schuster, who is a talented receiver, one of the top in the NFL, or he could move on and maybe give up Bourne. What's his name? Kendrick Bourne? Is that who is there? Or Booty? Like New England's offense sucks, dude. And I'm listening. I'm thinking about all the players that, and Eric was like, "I like their young talent. Their talent's trash, dude. Hey, get out of here, man. They're 4 wins. Hey, they can get Brandon Ayuk and still get 4 wins. But you got the last word, Dave.
but that's my point. Is
I'm horrible at this game, Sean. I'm horrible.
The receiving from San Francisco would have to blow them away because they were at that point. I could see a team like Pittsburgh. I could see a team like Jacksonville or somebody who collapsed last year who might need to get that guy that gets them over the hump. Okay. But just what you would have to give up to get that player. I think
when you could give up less to get a DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams.
Right. I think it's a big ask. That's why I think the best trade is a Devontae Adams for Brandon Ayuk, because you're taking on the salary that you can afford in Adams. Okay. You're getting rid of Ayuk to a team that can afford him. And that makes the most sense, because you're still allowing the team that has the win now mode to be able to win now. And you're getting rid of a situation where you're not going to pay a wide receiver $30 million next year.
All right. Well, thank you for the last word, both of you. Dear God.
Hey, Sean, listen, I'm like the worst at this game. Like I'm not good with. But I did be quiet, sort of.
We're going to get you trained up there. We're going to send you to training camp.
Don't call it the last word. Call it the last debate. It's easier.
Yeah, I know, because no one can shut the hell up when it happens. All right. So anyway, all thank you for watching. We appreciate it, and we will see you next week from the couch.
David Slow.